The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
On 92.7 or 106 FM and DSTV channel 856.
Ray in for Stephen on The Money Show. Now, The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking, the proud sponsor of South African Auto Week 2025. Good to be in your company this evening. Lots coming up in your program. The Century Group, a leading energy infrastructure company in Nigeria, has announced ambitious plans to expand into new African markets. So we'll be finding out about that. Then looking at new car sales and why people are going for certain makes and models. You know, growing up, you would go for the more expensive ones if you had the money, and if you wanted to have the prestige and you wanted to tell everybody how well you were doing, well, you would use certain cars. But today things are a little bit different because we're watching our budgets and we're watching our wallets. So a little bit later on, I'll be talking about that. What cars are people buying and why are they buying them? Can you still get a luxury car but not pay so much? I think you can. So that's what we'll be talking about later on. Then AGOA is still up in the air, asking what happens if the treaty isn't renewed. And this is the thing. So we've had all sorts of indications. On the one hand, we've had an indication that the White House saying, yeah, probably another year. We've had our trade and industry and competition minister, Parks Tau, come forward and say, okay, we think it's going to be 1 or 2 years, but still nothing's happening there. And the problem is this whole government shutdown in the United States. And that means that people are not going to be getting together to discuss this for a while. So we need to find out what are we facing, and we'll be chatting about what happens if the treaty isn't renewed. And I saw today BMW, the CEO, and he was saying, well, talking about car batteries, let's go and chat to Europe. Let's go and chat to other markets as well. And I kind of get it. I kind of get what's going on there. So we'll be talking about that one as well. And then, this is a topic that I'm sure you wonder about quite a bit. Your cell phone. Is your cell phone listening to you? You know what happens. You have a discussion. I speak to Pete and I say to him, have you seen the new air fryer that's come out? Say, for instance. And we have a nice conversation about air fryers. And then all of a sudden later on, I get home and I start scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or one of the others, and there's all sorts of stuff which look like they're talking about air fryers. And have you seen this air fryer, etc., etc. In fact, we're talking about it now. Perhaps on your cell phone, if you turn up the radio very loud, you may have air fryers coming up for you as well. So, yeah, finding out later on, is this true? Is your cell phone actually listening to you? I'd like to hear from you this evening. You can give us a call, 011-883-0702 in Johannesburg, or 021-446-0567 in Cape Town, or just leave a WhatsApp voice note. It's that easy, 072-702-1702.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
Right, let's find out about those cars now. I can see 1 or 2 WhatsApps coming in. So driving a Merc or a Beamer used to be the pinnacle of success. I mean, I remember my parents, one day I'm going to have a Mercedes-Benz. And, a lot of people thought that was the pinnacle of success, and many still do as well. But the problem is our local economy, and we're battling a little bit. And South Africa's domestic new vehicle sales seem to be on track now to exceed pre-pandemic levels for the first time in 5 years. And new figures show that people are not being brand loyal. They used to be very brand loyal. If you're driving around now, you'll see certain cars on the road and you think to yourself, now that's a new something. And they've got these funny new names. And it looks like that, people have got a little bit of money to play with. Well, joining us is President of Naamsa, Billy Tom. Hi, Billy. Good to have you on The Money Show.
Hi, Ray. Good evening, and good evening to the 702 listeners.
Right. Now, automobile organization Naamsa, you've been looking at these figures. What's driving the surge in new car sales? Is it choice? What do you make of what's happening?
Ray, firstly, if you look at the year we're cycling, last year was a bloodbath. The first half of the year, the industry was -7% down. and then we recover, and we ended up at 3% down. So we're cycling a soft period. And then if you look at how the volumes are year to date, I mean, in June we were 13.6% up, and now we've just got the results this afternoon. We're now 15.6% up. And what we're seeing fueling this growth, I mean, the auto sector has three buckets. You get the passenger vehicle, you get the light commercial vehicles, and the commercial vehicles, the heavies. The passenger segment, which is 2/3 of our volumes, has been showing a good growth. I mean, that segment is growing at 22.1%. The light commercial vehicles have recovered slowly, but not showing great growth. I mean, they hit 26% of the volumes. Halfway through the year, they were down 1.7%, but up now till the end of September. They up 3.3%. Heavy vehicles, a mixed bag. The mediums are up 8%, but the heavies are up quite a lot, 26%. But the extra heavies, which have been benefiting probably from the challenges Transnet has, year to date, they're down 12.3%. What we've seen on those numbers, Stephen, is that the affordable segment is growing 30.2%. And that segment is mainly a lot of the Chinese and Indian imported vehicles. And the Chinese alone have shown a growth year to date of 69%. So it's a year that's looking good, but it's fueled mainly by the affordable section. And if we look at and also the other thing, what we need to remember as well, we started the rate cut cycle in September last year. So the rates have been reduced by 125 basis points. And normally you get a lag of 3 to 6%.
Yeah.
3 to 6 months where you start seeing the impact of those rates. And people are buying, but what we're seeing is that people are buying down.
You see, that's the thing, Billy. People are buying down, and you can get, I think you can get a very good deal where you don't have to pay R500,000 for a car. What are you seeing? You spoke about Chinese and Indian brands as well. What are you seeing?
Yeah, look, let me clarify the Indian section, Ray. It's India manufactured vehicles. So the likes of Suzuki, which are manufactured in India, but it's a Japanese brand, and Toyota has, because India has set itself as a manufacturing hub, so there is a lot of vehicle coming from there. So I think what we see is also, I mean, the landscape has changed. A lot of these vehicles, what used to be options, come standard, and people are opting to buy something affordable. And also, despite us having a rate reduction of 125 basis points, it's still higher than the pre-COVID levels. So we've reduced rates, but we're not lower than we were before we went into COVID.
Yeah. I have to ask, though, is it because people are getting a better deal? And some of the car makers, and I won't name any names because that would be very impolite and I think quite unfair, but some car makers, I think, over the past couple of years or even decades, have held us to ransom because that's all that's been available. So you've gone for that car, you've paid that price, but I mean, now things are totally different. You can get something with all the bells and whistles and you're not paying an arm and a leg for it.
Yeah, look. I mean, the number of models in the country is massive. I think we've become a area where everybody wants to sell vehicles, but it's good for the consumer. I mean, they've got a choice, but there is a risk that we will face in the long term. We're becoming slowly a country of consumers, not manufacturers, because these vehicles that we import, they're not creating jobs. So we've got to get a better balance because they've created jobs elsewhere. I mean, the only beneficiary really is a dealer. So one's got to look at it and say, how do we reposition ourselves? Because you might have cheap cars but no jobs, because it's also taking some of the jobs. So, and hence we also been saying to government, probably competition is good, but set shop in South Africa, manufacture in South Africa, create jobs in South Africa, then it's beneficial.
You see, that's the thing as well. The final question to you, I think it worries a lot of people. If you are going to buy one of these new cars that are coming in, number one, will they be around in our country in 5 or 10 years' time? And number two, if that does happen, will you be able to get the parts for it? Are we in a grey area where we've been flooded, I think, by cars and makes of cars, but we don't really have the backstory?
Ray, I will say, I think probably one needs to understand the industry in totality. I'll give you some numbers. Globally last year, probably about 93.5 million cars were built. The Chinese built 30 million of those cars. So they've set up massive shops. The second biggest country in the world, China produced 90, America 10 million. So China has produced 3 times more than America. The next country is Japan, 8 million. Then comes India, I think, with about 6 million. So you can now see how the competitive landscape has changed globally, and how China has positioned itself as a manufacturing place, not only on cars. Think of cell phones. Cell phones are not made in America, but it's an American brand. So things have changed. I think the opportunity for us is to manufacture these vehicles in South Africa so that the backup is here. But I think, it's become very competitive because even the quality, quality of the brands have changed a lot. I was saying to someone, when we grew up as kids, there used to be products like gun gum to fix your silencer. You no longer have that. There used to be cars overheating. When last did you see a car bonnet opened up and then the water flowing out of the car because it's overheating? So there's been great improvement. So the competition, we see it all over the world has changed. That's why probably President Trump has been threatened by it and he's putting tariffs because the landscape has changed. But I think in South Africa, we're producing world-class vehicles. I think we've done a good job, and I don't see why we can stand back. Yeah,
but like you said, keep those jobs coming. We need to make sure that vehicles are still produced in this country. Billy Tom, thank you so much, President of Automobile Association called Naamsa. Good to have you on The Money Show.
Because this journey is better taken together.
Let's walk the talk. 7:02.
22 minutes past 6 o'clock, and the Century Group, a leading energy infrastructure company in Nigeria, has announced ambitious plans to expand into new African markets. This is part of its Future Forward strategy. The company is participating in this year's Africa Energy Week in Cape Town, using the platform to explore new opportunities. With over 2 decades of experience in enabling oil and gas production across the continent, the Century Group, they say they've built a strong track record in providing the infrastructure as well. Well, joining us is Dr. Prayer Angaye, who's the head of business strategy and new business at the Century Group. Doctor, hi, good evening. Good to have you on The Money Show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here as well.
Doctor, looking at those opportunities, what are you looking at? You've got an extensive operation throughout Africa so far. What areas are you looking at?
Well, thanks for having me on. As you rightly said, Century Group is an energy infrastructure company that has been in existence for well over 2 decades. Our experience in the deployment of offshore oil, offshore energy infrastructure to produce hydrocarbons is a unique quality that I would very much say we possess and we're proud of. We've supported clients over the years in field development of efforts, and that is our intention in expanding to new African countries to ensure that there's energy sufficiency and security in Africa. So that's the drive.
Right, that's the drive. What about South Africa? Or are we too far south?
We're equally having discussions with South African firms because we believe that South Africa is equally interested in developing its hydrocarbon, and we believe that it would be nice to commence the discussions and also ensure that we're very much on ground to support that drive to develop its oil and gas industry further.
Yeah. Talking about that, and there's been a lot of criticism of Africa that we don't beneficiate. We don't take our oil and gas. We use it for ourselves. We don't make it into products and things like that. How can your company, the Century Group, how can you help African countries to not just be abused and lose their oil and gas, but perhaps produce products and perhaps, I don't know, take the bull by the horns and go forward?
Well, thank you for that question. I don't think African countries are still in those dark days. There's now the realization that we need to produce and ensure industrialization of our continent and our various countries. The days of the so-called black gold curse, or the curse associated with oil and gas activities, I think those days are over. There's now the realization that we need to use these resources that we have given to us by God, I would say, to develop our various countries. Industrialization is key. The West over the years has used these resources in their industrialization. So asking that, we either cut down our fossil fuel production, I don't buy into that. I think the various energy sources and the very many ones that are available in Africa should be exploited, should be produced, and then used for the benefit of Africans. And the fact that we're equally speaking of clean energy, the use of LPG is also something that is encouraging. And I think these are the products that would very much be used for our growth, economic benefit, and generally the industrialization and moving the African continent forward.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to hear and see what happens with the Century Group. Dr. Preya Angaya, thank you so much. Head of Business Strategy and New Business at the Century Group. And I say very interesting because it's high time that Africa does that. It takes its oil, it takes its gas, and it produces something. And, the Century Group is based in Nigeria, South Africa. We're also looking at you.
The Money Show.
The Markets.
Viv Govender, Portfolio Manager at Rand Swiss. It's great to chat to you once again, Viv.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. Good to have you on. What's happening on the markets today? I saw seesawing in Asia this morning. At one point, I looked at the all-share index this afternoon, and we were up quite a bit. And then we finished down. Is it all because of what's happening in the United States, or is something else driving this?
I think it's partially that. I think it's the fact of the matter is we've hit all-time highs. If you look at our market, basically in September, it's been pretty much a one-way, trip upwards. There was a little bit of a wobble a little while ago, but overall, this month has been extreme. Or last month, sorry, has been extremely strong. And we've seen, all-time highs also be hit in the US, and now we have this event, the shutdown. The first time we had one, I think, since 2019. And we also, with the shutdown, have no information from the U.S., including no non-farm payroll numbers coming out tomorrow. So I think that combination of, unusual event, lack of information, and the fact that we have all-time highs kind of makes the market think maybe this is a good time to get some profits off the table.
Yeah. Looking at those non-farm payroll, that data, which is very critical for the U.S. Fed, what happens if this just carries on for 1 or 2 weeks? I mean, where do you see markets? Where do you see the U.S.?
Look, this is a thing that's been done like in the past. Basically, it comes down to who the public is going to start blaming for the pain that they're experiencing because there's no government. The Democrats obviously are going to say, we're not in power. It's the Republicans, and they're going to try and focus on things like healthcare. The Republicans will say the Democrats are trying to basically give freebies to immigrants, and we are trying to save your money. So it depends on who's going to be the one blamed for the problem. The thing is that I do think that the U.S. economy overall is quite strong. I think that what we've seen in the recent, little while in terms of performance of things like AI and so on has really pushed that market to new all-time highs for a reason. That being said, we have seen some indications from the U.S. that, for instance, job numbers are looking a bit weaker than we would like. So I do think that if it goes on for a few months, there might be a problem. But a couple of days, even a week or so, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue for the market.
Right. Viv, what were you watching today? There was sort of a mixed bag on the markets.
It's the gold price, big pullback after hitting, all-time highs that we talked about. It's still quite strong. We look at the gold price right now at about 38, 37, so we're looking just in the low 3800s. But at one point in time, early in the day, we were looking to almost breach the 39,000 level. And if you look at the JSE movers, you find that lots of the big fallers today have been the precious metal producers, the gold and the platinum producers are both being some of the biggest droppers in the day. And I think that's, kind of makes sense considering just how strong they've been recently.
Yeah. If AGOA isn't signed soon, is it going to be an absolute catastrophe? I was watching 36% of our markets or our producers at the moment are exempt from those tariffs anyway. What is your take? Because while the shutdown continues, there'll be no signatures.
Oh, that is most true. At the same time, the AGOA and this tariff stuff really has a lot to do with how Trump feels on the day or what he's going to be doing. And if you can figure that out, you're a much smarter person than I am, or maybe a much crazier person than I am. It's a very difficult thing to predict. If there is no deal, it's obviously negative for South Africa. It's negative for Africa as a whole. But looking at what the possibility of that being or not being, it's very difficult to predict because, like I said, it's really due to his, kind of like which side of the bed he gets up on or whatnot. We obviously are limited in terms of what we can actually do. I really don't think that we have the ability to influence that decision to a large extent. It's what his political, calculation is. It's what his, like I said, his prejudices and biases are going to be like. And so it's kind of like almost like a weather event, something we can be affected by, but we can't really influence.
Yeah. And something else that when I first saw it, I thought Naspers down by 80%. Naspers pushing ahead with its share division. I think there's method in this madness there as well. Your thoughts?
Oh, most certainly. Naspers was, a pretty pricey share, and I think having a split is, to be, expected. I do think that, obviously, as shares can be more and more valuable. If you look at Naspers over the last, say, little while, for instance, from, say, 2007 till now, this share price is up, basically 4,000+%. Eventually, if share price becomes too valuable, too high for people to make, reasonable, portfolio adjustments to. And when you do have a share split, you basically allow, more, nuanced investors, especially for retail investors. I think that's a bit positive for the company.
Yeah, it definitely is. Let's see what happens there. Viv Govender, thank you so much. Portfolio manager at Rand Swiss.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
Looking at some of your WhatsApps, and we've been talking about the automobile industry, and I asked the question, what kind of a car are you buying? Are you going to go for that car, the big one, the one that costs over $1 million? Perhaps you can't afford it, but you see it as prestige, as opposed to many people these days are going for budget cars. And I promise you, you can find a really good car with all the bells and whistles and not go and pay R500,000. Ben Buerter says, hi, as for cars, it has to be the best or nothing. That's Ben in Vredehoek. And then some of the other ones. Ron Nell says, hi, Ray. Yesterday I saw no less than 3 Ferraris in different parking lots here in Boksburg. Some people obviously have lots of money to throw around and are buying up these kind of cars. This is from Ron. You see, Ron, that's the thing. I think people do have money. And if you're driving around at the moment, I think the economy has taken a bit of an uptick because you can see all sorts of new cars. Many of them do come from China. Many of them come from India. And you can see the popular ones, but they look really good. And I think that's the whole thing as well. Finally, people feel like they're getting bang for their buck. I'd like to hear from you, though. What cars are you looking at? What have you bought and thought to yourself, this is really, really a good idea? 072-702-1702.
Because this journey is better taken together.
Let's walk the talk. 702.
Thanks, Tolokele. Coming up to 6:45 and talking now about what AGOA's expiry could mean for our country. This is the treaty that we've had with the United States, and it's geared to help African countries. It's geared to help us as well have no trade barriers. In other words, no tariffs as we negotiate certain goods. The problem has been, though, US President Donald Trump has turned around and he said 30% tariffs. That's what we're putting things at. And the expiry of AGOA happens on the 30th of September. So earlier on this week, we had a situation where it just ticked down and expired. In Washington, a White House official has said, yeah, we're looking at perhaps extending it for 1 year. So there's been that. We've also had our Trade and Industry and Competition Minister Park Sao saying it looks like it's going to be 1 or 2 years. But there's nothing that's concrete there yet. Well, joining us is Shane Naidoo, who's head of treasury and trade management at Nedbank. Hi, Shane. Good evening.
Good evening, Ray, to you and listeners.
Right, your take. If it's not reinstated or extended for another year, is it a catastrophe for South Africa?
Look, interesting question. I think, first of all, I must say it doesn't come as a shock. It's something that, we've been trying to get businesses ready in terms of securing themselves to say, what are the alternatives to the concentration they're exposed to on the U.S.? And it's a direct effect of the renewal or non-renewal. So despite the fact that, we might have a temporary reprieve of a renewal for a shortened period, either a year to 2 years, what we're not actually seeing in the market is that gearing towards participating with the public-private sector to inform the outcome. So what do I mean by that? The outcome is generative based on demand from international traders. It would be beneficial for the public sector to partner with the needs of these international traders to understand what exactly are they looking under AGOA, should it be renewed for a favorable outcome. Despite that, should it be renewed under its existing basically terms, I do feel that our existing international traders have long started their journey to diversify their businesses, making sure they look at alternative markets, making sure at the same time they penetrate existing markets. So from a perspective where we understand that, yes, at this point in time, it is not renewed as at the end of September, which is a couple of days ago. I appreciate the fact that we have not walked away from the negotiation table. However, we are uncertain as to basically what that outcome looks like, and it is quite clear in the market for traders that they have actually started revisiting alternatives.
It's interesting because I've been watching the rand, and the rand hasn't budged against the dollar. And I thought it would with this whole US shutdown. I thought the dollar would weaken with the rand. But a lot of people are saying it's kind of a wait and see, a holding pattern. What are you expecting if we given the thumbs down? Do you see the rand's going to slide a little bit? Or is it like you say, it's been built in and it'll just be business as usual?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a crystal ball. Hey, it's so difficult to predict. At this day and time, from the currency and the volatility and the fact that it has not basically depreciated or appreciated, it does look like foreign investors are waiting to see what the outcome is going to be in terms of the negotiation. However, that being said, I think, the nature of our traders have taken strategies to ensure that should they be exposed to volatility, they made sure they adopt some sort of currency hedging in place. They make sure they adopt some sort of futures options to accommodate for future trading under favorable rates. But at the same time, what they're looking to do, especially with globalization, is adopt a natural hedging strategy. So the faster they would adopt that, the better they would hold natural currency, and it would act as a natural hedge to adopt some of that risk.
Yeah. And then also, thinking about this as well, this is a lesson for us. Shane, this is a lesson, I suppose, that has been a long time in coming. We can't be too beholden on the United States. Now, look, they are our third largest trading partner, so we have no choice really. But I think down the line, if President Trump, well, he will go at the end of his term, hopefully. He'll step down after 2 terms. Then there's J.D. Vance. We could have years more of this to come.
So look, it's interesting, right? I mean, it's quite difficult to predict what another country's administration could do. But I think if you bring it closer to home, I think what this taught us as well is diversification, business readiness. So if you look at, for example, low-hanging fruit, long are the thoughts around your African free trade continental area agreements. And if you look at inter-Africa trade, which is really diversified to bring 54 African unions into a single trade. Still early days. I do believe it's going to take quite a few years to get to its fully developed, impactful stage. But currently, that's $3.4 trillion worth of trade, and that's close to home. Now, if you keep that in mind, and that's close to home, and there is agreements in place already. If you just focus on things like the automobile industry, If you look at automobiles and parts, they are our third biggest trading partner, and that's just across the border. Those are our neighbors. If you look at Europe, for example, sticking to that same principle of auto parts and cars, you've got the European SADC Economic Partnership Agreement. You've got the Trade Development Cooperation Agreement. You've then got the Clean Trade Investment Partnership Agreement. And all of this is valued at currently 81 or just over 81 billion euros. So these are all opportunities we could just, pluck quite quickly for businesses. I think what the intention is to understand is what is the drive, what is the strategic intent of businesses, and how do they collaborate with ecosystem partners.
Yeah, and the other thing is as well, the United States, we're still trading with our U.S. partners just because governments don't agree or there are tariffs. Behind the scenes, Shane, you'll agree, business is business.
Of course, business is business. If you look at essential things from food security to essentials, certain countries are highly dependent on certain commodities and goods. And, despite that, the numbers don't lie, like statistics, as I mentioned. If you're sticking to that, the auto parts and spares from 22%, and that's a significant amount of global trade. Concentrations, and just taking some snippets, those are affected in the agriculture industry that, we have a significant amount of job employments, around 35,000 jobs, both direct and indirect. You've got the automobile industry, you've got the steel and aluminium, which compensates for things like PGM metals, chrome, ferrochrome. You've got the wine, table grapes. So all of these as well. You've got the, let's call it food safety and security, that has an element of DGIC aligned to that. I don't think trade will stop, and I appreciate, like I said, the fact that we have not walked away from the negotiation table. But the outcome, once again, should we get a temporary sort of solution, is going to be vital to understand how do private sector carve the outcome they're looking for in terms of a favorable agreement. Secondly, as you mentioned, we have no control of what the new hemisphere of trading could be like, and they say a new broom sweeps clean. So it would be beneficial for businesses to try to adopt business-ready strategies supported by not walking away from the negotiation table.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Shane Naidoo, thank you so much, Head of Treasury and Trade Management at Nedbank.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking, proud sponsor of South African Auto Week 2025.
6 minutes to 7 o'clock, and talking now about corruption and how to stop it through fresh ideas and new leadership. South Africa has been hit by a wave of corruption with allegations of the police being infiltrated. We know the story. An estimated 2 billion rand was also looted from the Tembisa hospital in Gauteng. And you know the story. You know what happened there as well. 2 billion rand. And the Gauteng government, they've turned around. They've said, we got to track down these guys. We're going to do something about this. Well, these are just two examples of extreme corruption in South Africa. Now, we are due to speak to Prince Adewale Adebayo. He's a prominent political figure and lawyer in Nigeria. Unfortunately, he's not picking up this evening because we wanted to chat to him about what's happening in his country. They've had these novel ideas, novel ways to deal with what's going on in their country. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is just open up the lines. I want to hear from you on two things. Number one, first of all, talking about corruption, talking about how to stop it in our country. I'd like to know your kind of theories or your thoughts on how to stop corruption in our country. Number two, also talking about new cars. I'd like to hear what you bought. Have you bought something that's really good? Not designed to slam car sellers or anything like that. I'd just like to get a sense of, are you getting a bang for your buck? But going back to the corruption story, Nigeria is one country that has been affected by the scourge. Lessons have been learned as well from what happened in Nigeria. And what these guys did is they came up with their very own ways of prosecuting people who are accused of corruption. And it's interesting in Nigeria because they've got a law there, you see. I was reading up about this. They've got a law there where if you are in office, if you are a governor of a province, if you are a president, you cannot be then prosecuted for corruption. However, what they do there is they wait for you. They wait to see what happens during your term and after. If you are elected out of office, somebody else comes along. If you lose the race to be re-elected, put it that way, and you've done something criminal, you are then prosecuted. And you get a very lengthy sentence. So that's how it works in Nigeria. But they've got special institutions, special ways, special courts as well, set up to prosecute people who are found guilty of corruption. So, yeah, that's what we wanted to speak to Prince Adewale about. He's a prominent political figure and lawyer in Nigeria. But just to give you the gist of what they do in Nigeria. And perhaps it's something that we can do in South Africa as well. There's been lots of talk about prosecution happening in corruption courts. We set up a corruption court. Somebody's accused of this. And we don't have this justice system that takes for years for people to go to court and then they appeal and then they take it to the appeals court and on to the constitutional court. We don't have anything like that. We want to have a court that comes along and deals specifically with corruption. And if you get to the point where you are found guilty, you have to have a very good reason to turn around and to say, listen, this is what we're going to do now. You can't appeal it. You are going to go to prison. So perhaps it's a bit of a watershed moment for our country. If you think what's happened with the Tembisa hospital. Also, you remember VBS, the VBS bank saga as well. Exactly the same thing. Now, what's happened to that? Yes, we've had one or two government officials who have been sentenced and have gone off to jail. There was that whole plea agreement as well. But what has really happened with that? I mean, 2 billion rand there as well. A bank has been looted. A bank was looted. Now, a hospital looted as well. We've had state capture. We've had, 5 volumes of a report on state capture. We've had Bosasa now, and a few Bosasa people who have been implicated are sweating a little bit. We've got Gwede Mantashe of the ANC. He received that, 600,000 or 700,000 rand security system for his house. And he said he didn't know who was paying for it. But these are the questions that we have. So, I don't know. I'd love to hear from you this evening. You can WhatsApp through 072 702 1702. How should we deal with corruption in our country? Should we have a system where we have these courts and all of a sudden you just zat and that's the end of it? How do we deal with this? Well, coming up in your program in the next hour on The Money Show, in our small business focus, talking about Africa's race against time, talking about trade, technology and the urgency to compete. We have to have the tech. The tech has to be there if we want to trade and export our goods. So finding out what we do need a little bit later on. Of course, it is Tech Thursday as well. So talking about how your phone may be listening to you. Have you thought about this? Pete and I have a nice discussion and we turn around and all of a sudden, whatever we were talking about, we see this flood of adverts on our social media talking about Facebook. Now, in their defense, Meta has said that your phone doesn't listen to you. But I'll be speaking to a tech expert about this, Siphumelele Zondi, and he'll tell us exactly what's happening with your phone. And then in our investment school later on, also talking about investing in quality global companies. Perhaps you've got some money lying around and you want to invest in a company globally. So finding out about that one. So lots coming up on your Money Show, but I want your WhatsApp, 072 702 1702. It's just gone 7 o'clock.
The Money Show
On 702. Let's walk the talk.
on 92.7 or 106 FM and DSTV channel 856.
Ray in for Stephen on The Money Show. The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking, a proud sponsor of South African Auto Week 2025. Coming up in your program in the next hour, in our small business focus, talking about Africa's race against time to get our technology right for our export businesses, our trade. We are racing against time because other countries have got their tech right. What about the African continent? And then in Tech Thursday, which it is, talking about your phone and asking whether it's listening to your conversations. I'm looking forward to that one. And then we've got our investment school a little bit later on, talking investing in quality global companies, a path to financial wellness and long-term wealth. And this is the thing. If you want to invest overseas, do you know what you are doing? And a lot of people say, okay, I'll look at the S&P 500. I'll look at some of the tech stocks. You can't lose there. Well, you can. And you've got to be very, very, very I don't know, you've got to be very careful how you do things and how you get things going. So lots to talk about this evening. I'd like to hear your WhatsApps. Do send them through on 072 702 1702. We were talking before the break with Eyewitness News. We were talking about what's happening in the world of corruption. And I'd also like to hear from you on that one as well, to find out how you think we can stop corruption, how you think we can combat it. So keep your WhatsApps coming, 072 702 1702.
The Money Show, Tech Thursday.
So let's have a look at this story. I'm dying to do this story. Talking now about your phone and asking questions whether it's listening to your conversations. What's the truth behind social media coincidences? Is it coincidence? Is it clever algorithms or something more? Meta insists they do not listen to private conversations. I know, though, on WhatsApp, though, there's definitely a connection there. And I remain unconvinced. Does that include you as well? Well, joining us now is a tech expert, Siphumelele Zondi. Siphumelele, hi, good to have you on the Money Show, Siphumelele, and chat to you once again. Are they listening to us or are they not?
Hello, and thank you very much for having me again, Ray. So what they're saying, again, this is now Instagram chief Adam Mosseri, is that they are not listening to conversations. This view that they're listening to our conversations has gone back to about 10 years. I think it was in 2016 when it first emerged, and the company was still Facebook then. And there was this belief that they're listening into conversations, but they're saying that's not. They're not listening to conversations. And irrespective of the fact that this has been a recurring view for close to a decade now.
All right, what's happening? Say, let's play devil's advocate. They're not listening, okay? So what's happening then? Is it our WhatsApp conversations? Is it something like that? What could be happening?
So what's happening is that the algorithm would pick up what you're looking at. And the way Meta explains it is that they're also not just looking at your algorithm. They're looking at algorithm of your friends that you have on various social media platforms. They're also looking at algorithm of people who could be in the same geographical area, people who could have similar interests to you. And that's essentially how they figure out what you could be interested in. And I understand what you could be saying, that sometimes you might discuss a particular model of vehicle over the phone, and then you suddenly see that particular model of vehicle being advertised to you, and that could be suspicious. But they're saying that it's just algorithm that trying to figure out, because maybe you may have discussed it, but maybe you also looked at it too on a platform. And where they listen to conversations is when there's been a prompt, for example. And we do know these prompts where you can tell whichever platform that you are using, you first have the prompt and then you say, do this. That's when they will know that, okay, so he used the prompt, but the fact that it can figure out what you are saying in that prompt and what you are saying after saying that prompt could also maybe give us a question mark on how much can be listened to even when you haven't said a prompt.
Let's move to Google then. It's fair, I suppose, if I'm going to go and Google a Mercedes-Benz, say for instance, and I'm sure for the next week at least, I'll be getting all sorts of adverts about Mercedes-Benzes. I suppose, Siphumelele, we just need to accept that that's going to happen.
Totally. And also because they make money from advertisers as well. So they need to figure out who could be interested in a particular product and therefore try to get adverts linked to that particular product, to that particular individual, to those individuals, in order for their advertisers to make money too, and for them to see value in some of the in some of the adverts that they upload on the platform. So yes, that's why it would be happening that way, that if you've looked at a product, but also advertisers also pay. For example, let's say you were looking at let's use the same example of a car. Then you find that a particular dealership has paid that they are the first ones that appear when you are looking for that particular product.
All right, so those are Google Analytics, and you're right, they do pay for it. What can we do if we want to be more private? What should we be doing? Because you're right in what you're saying. They are saying they're not listening to us, and I suppose if it's proven that there's a massive lawsuit there. In fact, we'll probably land up owning Facebook collectively. So what can we do to prevent our privacy from being infringed on?
It's quite unfortunate that when you opt out of some of what they ask you, because in the beginning when you log onto these platforms, there's information that they ask of you, and then there's things that you can opt out of, and when you opt out of whatever you opt out of, you might not then get the full package of how that platform is used, and certain things are going to be blocked away from you. Then you need to decide how much you want to use that particular platform that you are using, and how much you want to keep private to yourself. And also what's interesting is that as well, that Meta once agreed to a $5 billion settlement in the US because of what was found to be mishandling of user data. So there has been an issue with user data and how it's been used in the past, and maybe they have not always in the past been forthcoming about what data they collect, what they use, how they even collect that data, which is why these question marks will always be there on whether we believe what they say or not, especially when it comes to listening into conversations or AI voice prompts.
And of course, we need to be careful. If I'm going to have a look at you on Facebook, then my face will come up on your side. You'll see that I'm looking at you. Is that right, though? I mean, is that the whole thing? If I have a look at Sipho Malele and I think, all right, let's see who he is, and I check you out, all of a sudden you're going to be spammed by my picture. Is that how it works?
Well, it depends on the platform that you're using, on the social media platform that you're using. Some are more private than others. When I think about TikTok, TikTok is more overt. It's very clear that this person, it even sent you that notification that this person was looking at your profile. And so there's no hiding from there. There are platforms that are more discreet. LinkedIn is also the same, where it would show that this person was looking at your profile, or if you haven't paid for the one that you pay for, it might say that people who work for a particular organization have been looking at your profile. And is that right? Maybe you might think that it's not, because you sometimes want to be discreet in how you do your things and your business, and whether you're looking for employment, whether you want to see if you know somebody from a particular place or not, or whether you are considering requesting a friend that a work colleague or not, and suddenly they send that information to that individual to say, well, this person was looking at your profile. It might not be right, no.
That's interesting. Final question. I mean, Facebook seems to have stood the test of time. And if I speak to my kids, they will say TikTok, and that's fair enough. Are other social media platforms coming through that perhaps new laws may govern them and say to them, listen, this is what you have to do. You've got to respect privacy. Are you seeing other new platforms coming through, or is it going to continue to be what we see?
In terms of privacy laws, each country has its own privacy laws, and if you then take it to the United States of America, it would be each state in the United States of America that has its own privacy laws and that govern it. But what you tend to find is that legislation just about all over the world would follow new trends. Sometimes they'd be far behind new trends as well, because social media keeps on tweaking itself and changing, and new platforms have different methods of doing things as well. TikTok, in a way, changed how social media works. When people suddenly move from still photography and text, and suddenly moved to video, and video content started to be consumed, and that then moved to other platforms as well, where you found older platforms suddenly also trying to improve the way they pitch video to their consumers. Think about Facebook, where video was sort of like in the background. Suddenly you can post reels on Facebook as well. You can post stories on Facebook as well. Instagram does the same. It used to be still photography. Suddenly video is more prominent on Instagram as well. But also that's all, it keeps on changing, and trends depending on what each generation wants, and also depending on the technology that is now available with that generation. AI is about to become more prominent. It's about to change things quite a lot as well.
You see, that's one thing I do want to talk about is AI, because we're very trusting when it comes to AI, but AI is, I think, and you can correct me, is just fetching information from different parts of the internet universe. And that, again, can infringe on your privacy, because perhaps I'm talking to you and I'm looking for information on you, but what I receive back could be a little bit libelous.
Totally. There are many things that could be wrong, right? Because it picks up whatever. Interestingly enough, someone asked for an old photo of Winnie Mandela this was on X a couple of days ago, and it brought up a photograph that of someone who didn't look anything like Winnie Mandela. So I also this was Grok AI on X. So I also responded to say, but who is this? And the response came back to say, well, it actually is Winnie Mandela, but we know what she looks like. So we know that it wasn't her. This goes back to AI hallucinations, which we've spoken about with Stephen on this platform before, where it seldom says it doesn't know information. And those are some of the dangers. Yes, it scouts the internet, and yes, it can pick up wrong information. And sometimes people post wrong information on purpose about particular individuals, but AI is going to pick up all that information, throw it back at you. And sometimes there's a shortage of information as well, right? Especially think about South Africa, the deep rural areas or the small towns where people are not posting certain information online as much as people who live in big cities. And you'd find that there's less information to find out from those areas. What then happens is that AI is going to say, well, we found information. It seldom says, we don't know.
Yeah, you're quite right. You're very right. It doesn't say we don't know. They say this is the answer, and you have it in 30 seconds or 5 seconds. Siphumelele Zonde, thank you so much for coming on. He's a tech expert. And there you go. Just be careful. Your phone may still be listening to you.
The Money Show. Small business focus.
In our small business focus tonight, talking about Africa's race against time, trade, technology, and the urgency to compete. We've got to get the tech there. We've got to make sure that we are up to scratch, because our counterparts, well, they're not waiting for anything. They're making money. So Africa's export competitiveness appears to be hinging on the urgent adoption of new technologies, closing the skills gap and building integrated infrastructure. Experts argue that unless this is done, African countries risk being sidelined in the fast-paced global trade arena. Joining us to discuss this is Luntelo Ntwentwe, who's the managing director at Vantage Advisory. Luntelo, good to have you on the Money Show, and thanks for coming in.
Ray, good evening. Thank you for having me as well. Good evening as well to the listeners.
Are we going to be left behind? Let's be honest about it, because everybody has a shot at Africa and they need to back away, because I think we're there, or are we?
Ray, look, it's quite interesting with what is happening. Global trade is moving at a very fast pace. Look, AGOA, for instance, right now is hanging in the balance.
Yeah.
And the impact of that, we will actually feel it if we don't move forward with it. But if you look at what has happened, for the past 12 months, you would have seen that most continents have gone back to their drawing board, right? They've invested heavily in terms of their industries. And what I can tell you is that at the end of the day, the continent that will survive or that will come on top is the one that will have industries that are competitive. And therefore, you have to start to question and ask ourselves as Africans or South Africans in terms of where are we in terms of this race, right? And it's really fascinating that Africa has always been that continent that everyone says is the next big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And we've been saying that for the past 30 years. But if you look at the intra-African trade amongst African countries themselves, you'll notice that it's only 20% that we trade with each other. But the rest of the trade is between Asia is between Europe as well. So therefore, this is the right time, as much as we're in the midst of all of these challenges, but this is the right time where South Africans, where African countries have to ask themselves to say, look, why are we not trading amongst each other? Why
is that? Because you would think we got the African Free Trade Agreements, we've got things like that. Is that not helping?
Look, that is a very beautiful tool, beautiful initiative, beautiful platform that African governments have to start implementing at a very fast pace. Because if we are not, and I think maybe let's take a step back, and for the listeners, the African Continental Free Trade was really created to ensure that we have this single market.
Yeah.
If you're in South Africa, we are able to trade easily to someone in Kenya. You have access to the market of over 1 billion people, right? And therefore, the implementation of that has been at a slow pace, right? 2024, for instance, on about 12% of trade that has come through that. And therefore, that's where now we're saying, why are we not moving at a very fast pace? It's all about the political will. It's all about the willingness of all of these African countries, 54 countries that have signed in to ensure that we're able to open the borders, we're able to invest on infrastructure, we're able to move these goods across. And therefore, if we're not tapping on it right now, we'll risk again for the next 30 years, we'll still continue to sing the same song that Africa is the next global frontier. Whereas if we start to really work together right now as African countries, therefore, those are the opportunities that we have. Because look, first world countries have moved very fast in terms of technology, right? And for us to be competitive, it's all about automation. It's all about investing on the latest technology. It's all about robotics. And we know that as Africa, we haven't actually moved.
But can we develop our own robotics? Do we have to go off to Europe and say, hey, or America and say, we've got our own skills here. We know what's going on.
Look, I attended, interesting enough about that, one of the B20 events, the Industrial Transformation and Innovation Task Force. And that was one of the questions that actually came in to say, look, with all of these recommendations that are coming in, we have to start investing on our skills, right? We do have the skills gap, though. We have to admit on that.
Right.
And therefore, the quicker we invest on that, the better we're going to be able to compete as well with our global counterparts. But at the moment, most of the time, you'll see that we usually import most of those skills.
You see, that is so interesting. But perhaps we need to look at some of the powerhouses. When I'm looking at Rwanda, say, for instance, they've turned themselves beautifully. They're a powerhouse. But politically, our government and the Rwandan government seem to be not the best of friends these days. I'm being very diplomatic about this.
Yeah.
Is it time to put our differences to one side and say, look, it's actually about money?
Look, that's where most of these, I think the global or the African intertrade usually is sitting at it, is that some of these countries are not working together. We're not talking to each other. What we're picking up is only policy on paper.
Right.
Implementation is the problem. And currently, what we need is implementation. The ideas and how we're supposed to work, all of those things have been drafted easily. However, if we can start to implement what has been on these agreements, what has been sitting on these potential policies, therefore, we can be able to move. Talk about Rwanda, talking about Kenya as well. I mean, we've spoken about this. Tourism, they've actually spearheading now, overtaking South Africa as well when it comes to tourism. And we've got a beautiful country around that. So those are the things that we start to need to look at as well as South Africans to say, look, other countries are starting to overtake us. And what are we doing wrong? And what do we need to do going forward?
And of course, there's also tech as well, technology as well. That's the other thing that we have to have a look at. It's so very, very, very important, so very interesting that when we're looking at this kind of thing, technology, you and I can have a chat for the rest of this evening, but I'm afraid we're way out of time. Naidoo, thank you so much for coming in, taking the time to come here, Managing Director, Advantage Advisory. Good to have you here on The Money Show, and we're inviting you back, I insist.
And you're right.
Thank you.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
In our investment school tonight, talking about investing in quality global companies, a path to financial wellness and long-term wealth. And this is the thing. How does investing in quality global companies boost both your financial health and your long-term wealth creation? a lot of people, they look at companies like Apple, say, for instance, or some of the other big ones, and they say, I'd like to invest in that. But it's a very slippery slope, and perhaps also as well, some of those companies don't move so much talking about their share value because, they kind of, been invested in, and they're not good investments. They just come with great reputation. So talking about that now, talking about long-term wealth creation and investing in quality global companies. You want to boost your financial health. You want to make sure that you've got something there. And it could be a long game. It could also be a short game as well. Well, joining us is our two guests, Andreas van der Horst, who's a portfolio manager at Mazi Asset Management, and also Chantal Marks, Head of Equity Research at F&B Wealth and Investments. Hi, Chantal. I'll start with you. Good evening. Good to have you on The Money Show.
Yes, it's fantastic to be here.
And Andreas, welcome as well, Portfolio Manager at Mazi Asset Management. Thank you for taking the time.
Good evening and greetings from Cape Town. You're all
Greetings
very well, and also good evening to listeners.
from the Mother City. Chantal, where do we find you? Also in the Mother City, or are you in Johannesburg?
I am in Johannesburg. I'm just a few kilometers away from the 702 building. But yeah, small kids and chaos ensues.
I totally understand. We'll wave from the window. Chantal, let's start with you. I mean, investing in quality global companies. What are you looking at? What advice do you have?
Well, I think you first need to think about the problem that you're trying to solve. And when it comes to investments, I reckon a lot of would-be investors feel very anxious around what exactly to invest in and how to get comfortable with what they're investing in. Ultimately, you want to be able to sleep soundly at night. We know the market goes up and down, but you want to be invested in something that goes up more often than it goes down and can withstand kind of big economic swings and the ebbs and flows of financial markets. You also want to make sure that you're invested in companies that have a large and growing addressable market. So you are going to probably get some decent revenue growth out of those companies. The companies are managed efficiently, and over the very long term, you'll manage to beat inflation and grow your wealth over time.
Right, Andreas, I'll bring you into that. You agree with Chantal? I mean, is it a very cautious game?
Look, let me first give you a health warning. First off, we're not giving financial advice here, and secondly, I'm not a doctor, so I can't give you any health advice. But certainly, I fully concur and endorse what Chantal says. If you own really great businesses that operate globally, have management of integrity, they're able to sustain themselves and grow under their reinvesting their own profits and do so for a very, very long time, you are no doubt going to compound wealth. When we think about the problem that we're trying to solve, which is really grow client wealth in real terms, so that means beating inflation and creating more over time and doing that in hard currency, we think about some of the wealthiest people that we know. And if you think about South Africa, maybe Capitec, that's been in the news recently, Michiel Leroux, or you think about the Ruperts, you think about Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, Facebook, you think about these types of people. Just to take an example, for example, Capitec as a business, since listing, it has gone up in dollars 4,200 times in US dollars. And that is just since 2001. So if you think about these people, the richest people we know are not people who are buying and selling the whole time. They're building something that is durable, that can grow for a very, very long time, and where the benefit of that growth accrues to them as shareholders, not to some other group of constituents. So those are the types of businesses that we are looking for that can really grow on a very, very long-term basis. Now, if you think about a business like Microsoft, you invested $1,000 in 1986 when it listed. That $1,000 would have become $8.7 million, so that's like 150 million rand. So that's a decent amount of money, and that's pretty much in over 40 years. If that's your investing horizon, that's kind of like a young person in their 20s wanting to retire at 65. Making good, prudent decisions along the way and staying the course really does pay off in the end.
But Andreas, I mean, hindsight is a lovely thing. I wish I'd have bought Bitcoin like 15 or 10 years ago, I would be a billionaire and we'd be having pina coladas on some beach somewhere and talking about this. But I didn't, because I didn't have, hindsight. How do you spot those companies? How do you spot those good investments? I mean, is it just luck, or is there a skill in this?
Yeah, there are really sort of two ways to go about the problem. The one is on a common sense base of finding very good businesses that are in your everyday life around you. So in South Africa, we can think of ShopRite, Mr. Price, Capitec. In the world, we can think of Apple, Microsoft, Meta. Why is it that these businesses keep on continue to do what they do? They do very relevant things. As it pertains to Mazi, we've developed an extensive set of data analytical tools over the last 10 years, which allows us to trawl this massive investable universe, which is about $120 trillion. So it's really an unthinkable number in rands. And there are probably about 90,000 plus listed stocks that you could potentially buy. And we trawl that universe every single day for just that handful of businesses. We're talking 100, 200 businesses that really meet the criteria of our investment philosophy and our process. And that's a crucial thing to have as an investor, is to have, like, what is my philosophy? What is my recipe for growing long-term wealth? How do I find those businesses that do that? So that's absolutely critical in the work that you do. They have a very, very clear philosophy. And in terms of how we work, we've got a very, very clear philosophy in terms of the types of businesses that we are looking for.
Yeah. Chantal, do you have some sort of algorithm? I mean, you're in charge of something that's massive. I mean, you're the head of equity research at FNB Wealth and Investments. I would think a lot of investors look to you to say, all right, you're the head of equity research. Where do we go? I mean, that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to managing your own portfolio, I mean, you can go a few routes. So you can hand it over to the professionals. You can invest in a unit trust fund, or you can consult a portfolio manager, then builds a segregated portfolio for you. But if you want to go at it on your own, I think that there are a few good rules of thumb, and Andreas mentioned one of them. Investing in what you know is a really important and crucial kind of strategy to follow, because that will already give you comfort. If it's something that you know, and perhaps a product or service that you use on a regular basis, I think you'll be a lot more comfortable with making that long-term investment decision. And then it's about actually drilling into some of the nitty-gritty. And not everyone is an accountant or an actuary, but there are a few things that a few kind of key elements that you can look at in order to at least filter out some of the stuff that won't do well in the future, or that could potentially be a red flag. So I think you need to start with making sure that the company has a big or growing addressable market. So there's a need for that product, and a lot of people still need to use it, or the amount of people that are going to use it in future is increasing. Then it's very important for a company to have a strong product set and a competitive advantage. So by competitive advantage, we mean that they offer something that someone else does not offer. It's important that they are growing their revenue. They have good margins, which means that their expenses are a lot less than their revenue and growing less than their revenue. And that needs to translate into cash. So a good rule of thumb there is to look at operating profit before depreciation. It sounds very technical now, but those numbers are available in the financial statement, and it needs to match up with the cash that the company is generating. They shouldn't have too much debt. And they should be, very importantly, adaptable to changing times. So be like Alphabet. A year ago, everyone was worried about Alphabet's AI strategy, and they've delivered. You now open a Google, and you have that assistant that helps you with your search. Don't be like Kodak. Don't resist digital photography. So adaptability in changing times is extremely important as well.
Yeah. Andreas, do you go for big names? I mean, do you spoke earlier on, we've got Capitec, which is a fantastic example, but they now are a big name. Is it a sure thing, or do you take a chance once in a while on somebody you think, you have a feeling, you have a hunch that they're going somewhere?
Look, We have a very, very clear and disciplined process. So we are looking for exceptional businesses with a proven track record and the ability to continue growing and compounding shareholder wealth, not anybody else's benefit, shareholder wealth. We're in the business of investment return. So that's crucial. Just to kind of frame things in a global context, out of the 40 stock portfolio that we own, our largest stock is Microsoft, and that's a market capitalization of $3.8 trillion. Okay. Wow. And our smallest stock is a automotive, advanced electronics manufacturer called Melexis in Belgium, and that's $3 billion. So that's about 50, something billion rand, just for size and scaling. Capitec is 420 billion rand. And our average company is $410 billion. So you must, times that by 70. So the global universe really gives you incredibly rich pickings. And, when you come as a South African investor into that, you really have a fantastic and very, very large opportunity set. So you do not need to kind of like take punts and hunches on things, to get the job done.
Yeah, but somebody will want to get rich quickly. And I mean, Chantal, I'll bring you into this. Is it a long game of investments, or is there a way to, very often somebody will just invest their money and think, this is not the long term. I want to draw it out within 2 or 3 months. Is it just a long game?
Yes, so when you're investing in the equity market, generally it's a long game, unless you are trading, and then you'll have your specific strategies that you follow in order to make sure that you are doing that responsibly. But if you're investing in equities, you need to understand that the market goes up and the market goes down. There are black swan events. COVID-19 happens, Trump's Liberation Day happens, and you get these deep drawdowns, which means that you need to be invested for a very long time in order to make sure that those drawdowns don't actually destroy your capital. If you're going to pull out your money over short periods of time, there's a very good chance that you could be pulling out your money at the bottom of the market or at the bottom of the cycle. And that's the really great thing about quality investing, is that it is something that you can do over the long term. When you're investing in quality companies, particularly companies with a global presence, you can sleep soundly at night. You don't have to look at your portfolio every single day. So it really is a long game. If you're looking at something for a 2-month period, if you're saving for a holiday that you want to take in December or January, the equity market probably isn't the place to do that.
Talking investing in quality global companies, a path to financial wellness and also long-term wealth. That's the thing, long-term wealth. 0727021702. Perhaps you've got a question for our guest tonight.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking, proud sponsor of South African Auto Week 2025.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
Right, in our investment school tonight, talking investing in quality global companies, and it's a path to financial wellness and also long-term wealth. Our guests are Andreas van der Horst, who's a portfolio manager at Mazi Asset Management, and also Chantal Marx, head of equity research at FNB Wealth and Investments. Andreas, I just want to ask you a question. I see 1 or 2 WhatsApps coming through, and they're asking the same thing. Is it better to get a broker, or can you just trade online? But talking globally, is it a bit of a risk just to kind of go your own way?
It's an excellent question. I would, not that this is financial advice, but really working with trusted intermediaries is the way to go. Typically, there's a proper custodial system behind it. There's somebody that you can speak to, whether it's not to give FNB Securities free marketing here, but, typically most banks do offer that. So certainly, if you are not a person who's professionally involved in asset management or in investments, already know your way around and have taught yourself, then working with a trusted intermediary in South Africa is the way to go.
Yeah. Chantal, another question as well, looking at some of the big stocks. We spoke about Apple and some of the other big ones as well. Is it a situation that their stocks don't move very often? When they do move, they fall or they rise, but they don't move very often. Should you be putting your money elsewhere because these guys are kind of mined out, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, so you're not going to get these blowout returns that you're going to get from a startup, for example, when you're investing in companies with these kind of proven track records over time. But you are going to get a lot of comfort, and you are going to get that compounding effect that Andreas also alluded to. So these guys have the ability to kind of grow their revenues over time, that manage their business more efficiently, grow earnings at a reasonable rate. And if you're invested for a long time, those earnings that get reinvested in the business grow earnings even further. The stock price will also continue to rise in line with those earnings. So even though you're not going to get 100% in 1 year, if you are going to consistently get 20% or 15 or 20% out of a company over a very long time, you are going to comfortably beat inflation. And they tend to be less volatile. So that's also something that we need to consider, because volatility is also something that indicates that the risk that you are taking is very high. So investing in quality companies might not give you those kind of blowout returns, but they'll give you that consistent return that you're looking for when you're building your wealth.
Andreas, then, is it country specific? If I'm thinking about the United States at the moment and US markets, I'm a little bit scared. They've got a government shutdown and things are volatile. They've got a US president who's anything but stable. He's quite erratic in his decision making. Is it country specific? I mean, should I look at companies, say, for instance, in the UK or somewhere else where it's a little bit more stable?
Not necessarily. The one thing that the US does have going for it is that it is a place that pays and rewards shareholders, unlike anywhere else in the world. Our experience in China has been that, their national project is employment and material well-being for the middle class, and Europe is a slightly different market. It's by and large bank financed with lots of leveraged companies. So we find lots of opportunities and continue to find lots of opportunities in the US. And that's just that's a function of the market there. But the key thing is really to find global businesses that have the ability to manage all of the stuff that is going on all the time. You think about Microsoft and how long it's been around and how entrenched it is in our personal and in our work lives. Whenever we sit in front of a computer or use a device, they've gone through COVID. They've gone through the global financial crisis. They've gone through the .com crash. They've gone through high interest rates, low interest rates, you name it. They've gone through everything. And yet they continue to soldier on. And so that's the type of business you should be looking for, something that is exceptionally well managed and is able to mitigate all of those risks. Because, you don't know what the future is going to be. It was Howard Marks that says you can't predict the future, but you can certainly prepare for it. And so those are the types of business we want to be in.
Yeah. And then, Chantal, if you're looking to invest, and I think Satrix is a great one for South Africans, all right? This is for JSE listed companies. They are the sure ones. They're going to be slow and sure, and you're going to make a little bit of money. If you're looking internationally, do you have the same type of collectives that you can invest in? And it's a sure thing. You're going to get a return. It's not going to be fantastic, but you'll get that return.
Yeah, so there's a lot of exchange traded funds available offshore that you can invest in, and there's a lot of them that are even listed on the JSE. So I'm going to follow Andreas's lead with FNB Securities, but I'm going to talk about ETFSA. So ETFSA is a platform that actually gives you a overall view on their website around every single exchange traded fund on the JSE. And there you'll be able to see that you can invest in certain thematics like technology or healthcare internationally. Fourth Industrial Revolution, Signia has an exchange traded fund for that. You can invest in the S&P 500 on the JSE via one of these exchange traded funds. And then we also have the exchange traded notes at FNB that follow specific companies. So if you've identified a company that you really believe in, there's a fair chance that you'll be able to find an exchange traded note listed on the JSE that will allow you to invest in it. And I mean, we've mentioned some of these companies. We've mentioned Apple, we've mentioned Alphabet, we've mentioned Microsoft. So you can get exposure to those companies on the JSE as well.
You see, it's so easy. It really is. Just get sound financial advice and go for those groups. Chantal Marx, Head of Equity Research at FNB Wealth and Investments. Also, Andreas van der Horst, who's a Portfolio Manager at Marzi Asset Management. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a fascinating discussion. I look forward to chatting to you both very soon. Thanks for being on The Money Show.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking, proud sponsor of South African Auto Week 2025.
And that wraps up our time together. And I think the main message that's come through is get that sound advice and don't be too reckless with your money. I know a lot of us saw that movie, I think it's called Wall Street once, where you had those people who just flashed in money and I want to make $1 million here and $1 million there. Sometimes you have to play the long game. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more cautious. But by being cautious, you can still make a lot of money. That wraps it up. Stephen is back again tomorrow. It's 8 o'clock.